Joining me now, I have retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Michael Hewitt, former Deputy Director for Global Operations at the Pentagon's Joint Staff, and also Jamil Jaffer, founder and Executive Director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University, and also Joe Khalil back with me as well. Gentlemen, good morning to all of you. Admiral, if I could just start with you with this latest reporting from Reuters, the potential of the president in the White House sending thousands more troops to the Middle East. For Americans waking up at home this morning trying to read the tea leaves here, is this all leading up to boots on the ground at some point?
I don't think this is leading to boots on the ground. What the president's doing is preparing for escalation dominance, so that as the Iranians continue to do what they're doing in the Straits and other places, how do we defend our allies? And again, the HEU on the ground in Iran is still an issue that has to be dealt with. And so I think as this war moves to the next phase where the Iranians are using the Straits as their weapon of choice, and they still have a very robust IRGC that are very, very much ideologues, we're moving to the phase of the war now where we go back to our end states. What the president wants is Iran to abandon its nuclear weapons program, abandon its missile program, and stop funding proxy networks and terrorism. That is what's being discussed right now, and there's a lot of back-channel conversations that none of us are aware of.
Jamil, just to follow up on what the Admiral was saying there, don't we not get to those objectives, though, without regime change? I think that's been one of the curious things about, listening to Hegseth and General Kane every few days is they're calling this, it's not a war of regime change. But do we, accomplish and achieve any of those objectives without that?
Markie, it's going to be really hard to take out all of the nuclear infrastructure that Iran has. We hit it with the massive ordnance penetrator back during Operation Midnight Hammer. We've hammered those targets as well during this conflict as well. But the truth is the Iranians have buried a lot of that highly enriched uranium that the Admiral was just talking about deep below ground. We think they may have centrifuges there as well. On top of that, their terror network is very hard to take apart. The Israelis and we have done a great job at taking out some of these capabilities in Lebanon, in other places like that. But the real fact of the matter is that, to the Admiral's point, there's 109,000 IRGC forces, 300,000 regular army, 600,000 besieged. If you're going to really effectively change the regime, as the president actually talked about on the first day of this conflict, and go after their nuclear program and go after their terror proxy network, it's going to take a lot more. It may not take boots on the ground, but what it will take is a sustained campaign, and that is not what's going to happen here in the next week or two. So if we stop the conflict in the near future, we will probably not be able to achieve all of the many objectives that have been set out thus far. So the question becomes, what have we achieved, and is that enough to constitute victory in this conflict?
And Admiral, to Joe's reporting right off the top of the hour there, in the last 24 hours, we've pivoted from, targeting military sites, or when I say we, I should say, Israel did, targeting military sites to oil facilities. It seems like a dangerous escalation. I mean, when the U.S. attacked Karg Island, we left its oil infrastructure untouched. Does this seem dangerous to you and like it's taking us to the next level of warfare here?
Well, I certainly think what the Israelis have done is start to take out the energy infrastructure because their end state is clear, which is regime collapse. The U.S.'s end state is a legitimate regime that will abandon its weapons program and be part of the normal world order. So I think while we're not completely aligned on the end state, the Israelis certainly have an end state of regime collapse.
Jamil, President Trump last night, I know you saw this, slammed Israel's strike on Iran's massive natural gas facility, saying the U.S. knew nothing about this attack, that Qatar was also not involved. He also said Israel won't attack that area again unless Iran hits innocent neighbors like Qatar. This was a massive strike to not know anything about. So are we no longer coordinating with Israel at this point?
I think that's hard to believe. I think obviously we're coordinating very closely with the Israelis. Whether we knew about this particular strike or not is a little bit unclear. We know over the weekend, the Israelis also hit oil depots a week and a half ago or so. The Israelis also hit oil depots. The president was frustrated with that. He told them to stop doing that. He made public that he had told them that. Now we see a second strike on gas infrastructure. It's hard to imagine none of these things are coordinated. It's clear the U.S. doesn't want anything to do with it, doesn't want responsibility for it in public. At the same time, notice what the president said. If you continue to hit your innocent neighbors, which the Iranians, even though they supposedly apologize for it, have continued to do over and over again. And so now the real question becomes, can this war be won without hitting that oil infrastructure? And if we do hit the oil infrastructure, does that continue to raise the world price of oil? Does that cause economic challenges here at home and abroad? These are difficult questions for the president to answer politically because he's facing challenges about how long this war will go on for. Will we need boots on the ground? And will the world economy survive in the aftermath of what is an important conflict for us to win and win clearly?
Joe, let me end with you, just bringing you back in live from Dubai. Again, we're expecting Pete Hegseth and General Kane to talk here in less than 2 hours' time. Do you think that we will hear them address these attacks in the region and maybe even vocally share some frustration about Israel's attack yesterday?
I don't anticipate that they sort of take out any frustration against Israel, against the U.S. ally there, but I think certainly they will get the question about it. I imagine they're going to continue, at least Secretary Hegseth will, to repeat what President Trump said, which is that they didn't know anything about it. Now, there has been reporting to the contrary that the U.S., in fact, was aware. President Trump denies that, but I imagine that you'll see both of them try to present a united front. I wonder, behind the scenes, when the Pentagon reporters start to ask questions there, if there is frustration there with this attack specifically, because obviously you're starting to see the ripple effect of it in costs, not just in the Middle East, not just in Europe, but in the United States as well.
Yeah, of course, we'll take that live as soon as it starts happening. Admiral Michael Hewitt, Jamil Jaffer, Joe Khalil in Dubai, thank you all so very much for your time on an early Thursday morning. Appreciate it.